Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of the Trans Icelandic Broad Cast. I'm Andie Fontaine, news editor at the Reykjavik Grapevine.
I'm Sæborg Ninja, the treasurer of Trans Iceland.
In this series, we discuss all things trans and trans-related. And on this particular episode, we're going to discuss the subject of being an ally for trans people.
Yeah. It's the first tip I think everyone should take to heart in any kind of allyship is don't make it about you. Because this is really not about... being an ally is really making it about the person you're being an ally to. Because...
Definitely so.
Yeah.
Like, just, like to my own mind, like there's the word ally itself, like, is, that's something that is given to you, you know, for the most part, in my opinion, that, just speaking for myself here.
Yeah.
That, like, if you consider yourself an ally to trans people, that's great, but you can show that in actions, you can show that in words. Calling yourself an ally just kind of like, it's like you pinning a medal on yourself. It's something other trans people will call you and point out. Like, for example, since we are going to be on YouTube, Oliver Thornton, who runs Philosophy Tube, I would say is definitely a trans ally.
Yeah.
But he has never called himself a trans ally, and I don't think he ever would.
Yeah, it's very welcome. It's nice because when I hear people calling themselves allies, I I tend to like, oh really? Yeah, it raises flags for me.
Yeah.
It's just I wanna know your actions.
Yes, you don't need to it's like just telling everyone, you know, I'm a good person. I'm a good person, you know, I'm a good person. Like, you don't need to tell everyone you're a good person if you're being a good person. Then everyone knows you're a good person.
Yeah.
I would definitely say so. And you had also included here keeping in touch with vocabulary.
Yeah.
As it were. So expand upon that.
Yeah, I think that's really important because the trans vocabulary has traditionally been made by cis people, starting with the transsexual.
Yes.
By a very, very sick man who's somehow still employed as a doctor. But yet, due to the cis-centered nature of society, it tends to be like this. So, saying like, oh, this person is male to female, like, always squicks me out. Like, I'm like, if trans person like describes themselves this way, like, I don't have any beef with it, but when I hear other like cis people talk about it, like that kind of, yeah, and like talking about people being pre and post-op, that's really just like a way to like,
fully transitioned.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just an extension of like what's in your pants.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just like...
This is true.
Yeah.
And I know this can be kind of daunting, like, because one of the more common responses that I've heard when it comes to vocabulary, like not just for trans people, but in the queer community in general, is like, I can't keep up with all these changing terms. And like sometimes that is a little bit disingenuous because it's not like we're throwing out new terms every week or something. Yeah. But I can still sympathize a bit, but there fortunately is a really simple solution. And I've always recommended to cis people to like read articles, any sort of articles or essays written by trans people.
Yeah. And
check out the vocabulary they're using there. Like, and if you notice a variation, it's because it does exist. I do know that there are people who are totally, like there are trans people who are totally comfortable using MTF or FTM, like acronyms for male to female and female to male.
Yeah.
And there are others who are not. But when you know that a particular term is kind of borderline or on the edge, I would err on the side of caution and just not use it, you know?
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
Until you get like the actual auditory cue. But just like reading the articles and essays of other trans people and seeing the vocabulary that they're using can take you really far. You don't have to spend hours researching this, and if you happen to use a word or term or a phrase that has fallen out of fashion, shall we say?
Yeah.
Like, I think most folks are going to be kind of forgiving, and they correct you. It's not a personal attack. It's just you're being corrected. That's all. Just like if you misspell somebody's name and they correct the spelling of that name, you're not being attacked for misspelling their name.
Yeah.
You're just being corrected so you can get it right. That's all. So I take it anyway.
That's a good take. Yeah. And on that like line of like reading up on like what trans people are writing and such, it's really good to use your platform as a cis person to amplify our voices. Like, so you read that article. Now maybe share that article up on your Facebook timeline or Twitter or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Like help other people get to this place.
I think that's a really important point too, because like there's a tendency, like if, how do I put this? There's certain things that like if I bring them up and I talk about them, I'm being shrill or bitchy or like too PC. But I mean, for anyone that uses PC unironically, I reject their opinion.
Yeah.
Outright anyway.
As you should.
But yes, there's certain things that if I talk about them in a trans-related context, I'm being shrill or picky or being a bitch or whatever. But
yeah,
like if a cis person brings them up to other cis people, then all of a sudden other cis people are like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't consider that before. And so it is pretty helpful for us, as you say, when cis people are uplifting our voices to other cis people, because the message can often be more likely to be received.
Yeah. It always helps. It has shown itself in the field of medicine, that like cis people are usually more listened to than trans people. And just about everywhere, like people usually come with the assumption that marginalized people have an agenda, and that's like less of a concern when you're not marginalized, or like you're not talking about your own marginalization. Like,
yes. Yeah, when you don't really have stakes.
Yeah, when you don't have skin in the game, which is a big problem, it turns out. That people don't like listen to those who have skin in the game.
Yes, because you're not impartial and objective.
Yeah.
You're not using facts and logic
Ugh.
to back up your arguments.
Yeah. Which, yeah.
Yes.
And engaging these people tends to not be a good thing.
Engaging.
Yeah, those types.
The facts and logic.
The facts and logic types, because they will often come with like very blatant, random transphobia, and
it's such a strange argument too, because it's like, for example, as a white person, and if I want to learn about the black experience, I'm probably going to listen to black people rather than a white person explaining to me the black experience, because I know that a black person talking about the black experience is speaking from their lived experience. They're the experts. You know, I'm not thinking to myself, well, I don't know, like they're really invested in this subject, and you know, it's absolutely ridiculous. But there's people that really think that way.
Yeah.
You know, that like they're too involved to be able to like look at things objectively or whatever, and it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Like if you want to know about the lived experience of a person, you listen to them.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds ridiculous to even have to say that out loud, but This is the world we live in.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then that brings us, since we're talking about like crappy people, you'd also listed don't engage random transphobes online.
Yeah. Pride last year, there was like a panel about...
At Reykjavik Pride.
Yeah, Reykjavik Pride. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a panel about hate speech.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a recent like study, I think it was in Poland, like it was somewhere in like Eastern Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Like they like discovered like, oh, reading hate speech makes you more receptive to it. Like if you don't have skin in the game, like if it's not directed at you,
mm-hmm.
you slowly become more radicalized. Like you become more open. You can like get desensitized to the violence. So you just become more accepting to it, like unconsciously.
Mm-hmm.
So when people respond to these people, they like the way the internet works. It tells the algorithm this is interesting, so it tries to bring that to more eyes, so more people will see it, so more people will read the transphobia, and more people will become transphobic. So it doesn't help. Like there are aspects to like responding to transphobia online to like fight it, but engaging random transphobes is not the way. And recently, following that like panel, group was made here on Facebook, like a local run group called where we just like hate speech watch or prejudice watch, and like the sole reason the group exists is to like locate when like phobia is popping off like on news articles and like placed on the internet. And then we just like, it's happening, and then everyone just goes in and it's gonna be like just really fucking positive. It's like, wow, I'm so proud of you for going through this, like you rock. Like just
okay,
yeah,
so
like
there's like a hateful comment that appears,
yeah,
instead of people responding to that comment,
just drown it out.
Just completely drown it out with positive vibes.
Yeah.
That's a really good tactic. I hadn't considered that before. I think it's also important to delineate between engaging with transphobes and engaging with transphobia.
Yeah.
You know, because I've seen people, like possibly well-intentioned people, like say a particular thing that is transphobic. And in that case, I think, like, I don't know, I usually just use your better judgment. Like, do you know this person? Or, you know, are they coming from a place of sincere ignorance and a lack of knowledge? In which case, like, if you have the energy for it, then by all means impart them with the right information. But, you know, Poe's law being what it is, sometimes it's hard to tell when someone is sincerely confused or sincerely misinformed, or when they're just trying to disrupt the signal and when they're trying to stir up bad feelings. It's tricky sometimes.
It's very tricky. Yeah, I haven't found the solution yet.
No, neither have I. I just do that on a case-by-case basis. Like I have, like, for example, there's a Icelandic Facebook group for queer people, and the queer umbrella is very broad, and so not everyone in that group is trans, and even members of the queer community can sometimes, you know, drop an opinion that's transphobic, perhaps without them realizing that what they're saying is transphobic. And I'm always unsure. Like, it's always a roll of the dice. Like, do I respond to this? Do I correct them? Or am I just feeding a troll? I never know. I just go by my gut instinct, and if I know that person, what I know about their background and their level of sincerity.
Yeah. I've noticed some people that there are just like right-wing trolls who have been in that group and have been like really just like concern trolling in there. Because I've had problems with them in feminist group I'm also moderating.
Oh, okay.
Not also that I am moderating. Yeah.
Well, that's another beautiful thing about social media, I suppose, is that when you see that kind of comment, yeah, that's something. Like, if you don't know them personally, look at their profile.
Yeah.
Like, click on their profile and just scroll through it and see what sort of things they're sharing on their timeline. It can usually give you some kind of indication of where they're actually coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Usually. At least for their publicly shared posts.
Yeah. But you never know. People
Exactly.
People can be crafty. That's why, like, being in same groups, like, you have, it's work. It's like it's actually just like sometimes you just don't have the spoons or energy for that work.
Yes.
Or you just don't want to spend your time on that work. So it's complicated. Yeah.
It is. But I think you're absolutely right that, like, if someone is a transphobe, like, straight up believes that, like, we're men pretending to be women, then, like, that person, they're a waste of time, and absolutely do not engage with them at all.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with that. Now,
there's also dealing with hurting others, which is an important thing to do. Like, because, we do occasionally hurt other people because we're ignorant.
Yes.
And, like, the main thing to do is just to listen, process, and improve. Like, it hurts. Hurting other people, it is painful. Like, I understand, because I've hurt people with my ignorance. But it's,
yeah, we can all relate to that.
Yeah.
We've all done that at some point or another.
Yeah.
And so it's like we said on the previous episode about spilling coffee.
Yeah.
Like, if I accidentally spilled coffee on you and I burned you, like, then I just apologize. Whether I don't, like, emphasize that I didn't mean to do it. It was totally an accident. And how dare you get angry at me for having scalded you with boiling hot coffee?
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly. And but it's the way people use language usually makes them just so much more sensitive.
How do you mean?
I think it's because, like, when you spill coffee, like, it's obvious you're making a mistake, but when you expressing yourself hurt someone, it always feels like a more personal slight. Like, it cannot be an accident because you're just expressing yourself. It's just like sharing yourself, and thus, like, it always feels like a harsh criticism on your inner self when in those situations, like, I think, which makes people, which leads to people being often very, very defensive in these situations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely so. I can I can relate one example. I spoke to my father recently.
Yeah.
Just, like, telling him about my plans and stuff. And, like, in the course of talking to him about my particular transition and what I'm going through, because I told him, I had my orchiectomy, the surgical removal of the testicles for those following at home, and hormone replacement therapy, and I just talked about how much better I feel, like how much better it's been for my mental health and my physical health and stuff. And he was like, "Oh, Andie, those sound like really permanent changes." And I was like, in the back of my mind, I was like, yeah, I sure hope they are. Like, that's the whole point. But, like, it was still like, so, but I had come out to him last year.
Yeah.
You see? And so his responding like that just made me think, did he think that this was like a phase or something? that I was just gonna like grow out of it at the age of 48, or change my mind, or this was just a temporary thing, or something. And it felt kind of invalidating. But that wasn't his intent. He's just being a parent.
Yeah.
Like being super worried all the time about his children. And so I'd be like, well, yeah, they are permanent, but I want to emphasize like that my health has improved as a result of these things, like psychologically and physically. My health has improved. And we had a brief discussion about what hormonal dysphoria is and like how it affects you. And he arrived at a better understanding and like thanked me for my patience with him by the end of the conversation. But yeah, it's still difficult, and like, but he's my dad, so like he gets a bit more of a pass on these. He's also 68 years old.
Yeah.
So he gets a bit more of a pass on these things than like say someone my own age that is just an acquaintance might.
Yeah.
On a more positive note, there's the concept of backing us up.
Yeah. Which is like dealing with others hurting us. Also, yeah. So if like we're in an argument and people are not listening to us or bemeaning us or being really shitty to us, please step in. Maybe like, of course, like case to case basis, like, but yeah. Being in a really shitty situation and dealing with transphobia, just like having a person like step in and backing us up can be huge. When I about a year ago, I got thrown out of a bar for being trans, and just like having people there to like back me up and like shit talk and argue with the bouncer was like really good. Was like it made a pretty traumatizing thing like be less so. And yeah,
it's very helpful.
Yeah. Because it's so easy in those moments to feel like completely alone in the world. And yeah, alleviating that somehow is a really nice form of allyship.
Definitely so. I think both like in real life and on the internet especially. Like you don't need to be an expert on trans issues to intervene when, you know, if it's happening online, for example, and somebody is being like crappy and transphobic with a trans person, like you don't have to jump into the discussion like linking to like peer-reviewed journal studies or something like that.
Yeah.
Just even if you just jump in and reply to the aggressor by telling him to shut the fuck up, like that goes a long way.
Yeah.
I think, or like, dude, you're being a bigot, shut up, like go away, or whatever. Like that's very encouraging, you know, because as you say, when you're being attacked like that, whether it's happening online or in real life, it can be very isolating, where you feel like it's just yourself and everyone else is either an aggressor or just doesn't care. And seeing people standing on the sidelines while somebody is being crappy and transphobic to you is not a really good feeling. No. Conversely, when cis people jump in and they defend you, even if it's just to tell the other person to shut up and go away, like that goes a very long way. Yeah, I think in affirming that like it's nice to be reminded there's decent people in the world. Yeah, you know, in general.
Exactly. It also has like the added effect of you communicating to that person that their behavior is unacceptable in society.
Yes.
Because like if you believe that it's okay to demean marginalized people in society, the only way to challenge that notion is for the non-marginalized to step up and be like, no, this is not okay.
Mm-hmm. I think it's an excellent point, because like the aggressor, the transphobe, is counting on you, cis people, to back them up or stay out of the way when they're attacking us. If they can't rely on that anymore, they're going to be a lot less likely to do something next time.
Yeah.
Because they know that they can't count on cis people to back them up every single time. And if they get that message, they're going to be more reluctant. Like, I've seen it myself. You know, it goes a very, very long way. And doesn't really cost you anything. I mean, if the aggressor ends up turning on you and being crappy with you, I mean, yeah, that sucks and it doesn't feel good, but like, then imagine how it feels for us. So just you making that little bit of effort goes an extraordinarily long way, and is deeply appreciated, and is, I would say, pretty much like kind of your obligation as a decent human being anyway, to not be a bystander to oppression.
Yeah, it's a moral obligation.
It absolutely is.
And talking about moral obligations, the media can be very, very transphobic, and often our stories are not told by us. There is a lot of like cis cinema about trans people that is all problematic, and other like cis stories about trans people. So support trans artists. Like, buy that movie, go to that movie by the trans person. Watch watch Steven Universe.
Mm.
They're non-binary, right?
I think so.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely trans friendly, at least.
Yeah.
Commission artwork from trans artists.
Yeah.
As well. Definitely
Yeah.
so. I'd like to point out that I am the only openly trans journalist in Iceland, so you could also read my articles. That's a great way to support the trans community.
Yeah, it's like praxis. Also, like, listen to like trans performance, like trans music. Not to be confused with trans music, which I don't know how to differentiate this without spelling it out.
Yeah, because it's spelled the same in Icelandic. Trans.
Yeah.
That's clever.
Yeah. And on that note, also support trans-run organizations.
Mm-hmm.
There are sometimes like organizations that are run by parents or other like outsiders of the community, and sometimes they can do good, but they can like it's easier to be misled when you're not a part of the group.
Mm-hmm.
It's like with Autism Speaks. It's not a good organization that works for the interests of autistic people.
No, Autism Speaks is a hate group.
Yeah. Just trans-run organizations tend to know better what's best for trans people.
And there's probably like one in your community, like even like a very small community. There's probably going to be, if not trans-specific, then a trans-inclusive queer organization.
Yeah.
That, you can lend any kind of support to. Like if they're having, say, like a clothing drive, you can donate to them then. You can when they're having events, you can share that on Facebook with others so that they see that they're doing this. You can donate regularly to their coffers so that they have the funds. And you being the treasurer of Trans Iceland.
Yeah, you can go to transiceland.is and transisland.is.
Yes.
And you can like find out info there to how to donate. You can also like contact me on how to donate. Yeah. Yeah, give to our organizations. And like Trans Lifeline I think there is in the US, like it's really cool like phone network like where trans people can just like call in and just like get help, get support, and figure out like their shit in these dark times.
Mm-hmm. Buy music and go to the shows of trans musicians and bands.
Yeah,
as well.
Exactly.
There's just tons of ways that you can lend your support, financially and also through your very presence. You know?
Yeah, and that kind of like brings you to the verge of not being just an ally, but you're nearing being a co-conspirator, which is, I think, what a true ally would do.
Mm-hmm.
Because thinking this way makes it so you yourself, like a co-conspirator acts, it does something. An ally can be a very passive thing.
Yes.
Everyone was an ally at the Red Wedding, and that still went pretty poorly for the newlyweds and their families. Is my understanding, at least.
Yeah.
It's been a while. So, yeah. It's
Definitely so. When your allyship is backed up with actions.
Yeah.
When you're showing your allyship in the way that you act, the way that you deal with transphobic people, the support that you lend to trans organizations, and there's also, well, something to keep in mind this November for Trans Day of Remembrance.
Yeah.
For example, like that's a really it's a hard day, okay, for a lot of trans people, because it's Trans Day of Remembrance is a day for remembering trans people who were murdered or took their own lives for being trans, and it can be a very somber occasion. It can be a very depressing occasion because, like, we all know somebody who has been subjected to violence in some form or another, like perhaps self-harm or substance abuse, or has been in a bad place because of transphobia around them. And like when this day comes up, there's like a couple of cis people I know who will diligently share articles about like this number of trans people were murdered this year, and like that's fine and all, but like if you know trans people, like on this day, like do something nice for them. I would recommend like just any small thing, like as a cup of coffee, or like offer like, do you want to come over and watch a movie, like anything like nice like that. I think
also the day afterwards, because like
all year round.
But like for me, like I like on that day, like I was running around like getting the event in City Hall like ready and such, like, and I'd like put together like the slideshow of like everyone who had been murdered and like where, and like putting that up. Like I had like I read how like every like all of the people like on that slideshow, like we know, like all the trans people that we know like got murdered. Like I went through that stuff, like, and I just like did not have time to like process those that thing like till like after the event, and the day after, and the day after for me was like the worst, because that's when I had time to like sit with it and like really cry. So yeah, like also the day after, like those 2 days are like really important, I think, to like show that you're there.
I think so too.
Yeah,
I think absolutely so. Like, it's of course important to raise awareness of violence against trans people, but like if there's trans people in your life, like I think that those days especially are good times to reach out and show some extra kindness. You know, like you don't need to talk to us about like how hard it is, or like how it sucks that there's so much violence directed at us, and because we're well aware of that. Like it's a pretty vulnerable time of the year, and it's just really nice when when cis people like just show like a little bit of extra kindness that day, in my opinion. Anyway, they should be doing that all year round.
Yeah,
To be honest.
but yeah, this is the time to show extra care.
Mm-hmm.
It's It's like sad Christmas.
Yeah.
There's like no presents and just sadness and sorrow.
Yeah, it can be very sorrowful.
Yeah.
So just be fortunate there's no, like that one song, Trans Day of Revenge.
Yeah.
Be glad there's no Trans Day of Revenge yet.
Not yet, no.
If you want to prevent that from happening, be nice to us on Trans Day of Remembrance. That's what I'm saying. So yes. But there's like, lastly, you talked here. Be aware of social bias and hierarchical standards. Can you perhaps explain for our listeners what hierarchy is?
Hierarchy is the system of hierarchy within our society, because the patriarchy is really only looks at like gender in a pretty like the gender hierarchy in like a very strict thing, and it tends to make it so white people tend to like really look like not look at racism, not look at ableism, not look at queerphobia, not look at like all of the other the standards that society has to like judge what is a normal person. Like that includes classism. Like a poor person isn't normal, because then them being poor wouldn't be seen as a moral failure by society.
Yes.
And when you're not like on the top of this pyramid, or like pretty close to it, like seeming to be on top of it, because the more normal you are, the more people tend to listen to you, the more leeway you have in society, you have more chances to fail and reinvent yourself, or get an endless amount of chances to abuse and fail and just keep getting chances, like the more normal you are. So when like someone like really marginalized, like trans people, do something, like we usually face more scrutiny than others. And like and due to transphobia, like we are more likely to like not be able to have wealth, which is like always takes against us. So yeah, like there are a lot of ways that societal standard and societal bias is against us. So we are not listened to very often. If we're disagreeing with someone, we are usually the ones that will have to prove ourselves. If there is a scandal or something, we typically do not have like access to the media to get our story out there. While many people who go through a lot of scandals have like almost an entire industry just built around making sure that they don't look bad in the media. And
this is very true.
Just let us kind of be a mess, because we are dealing with a lot of shit.
And we'll take care of our own problematic people within our community.
We'll at least try.
Yes. But it means we don't need intervention from cis people.
Because like
they tell us that like Caitlyn Jenner is problematic or whatever. Like, we're well aware. Thanks. It's not really your place to criticize Caitlyn.
It's also it's that, and it's
But the class issue is really, I'm glad that you have brought that up as well, because like just to give an example of like how that marginalization can have this kind of domino effect. Like, as you're probably aware, in the United States, like there's no protections for trans people when it comes to employment. Like in the United States, you can fire somebody for being trans, and if you don't have a job, then you don't have money. If you don't have money, you don't have access to resources. You could lose your home, and become even more marginalized as a result of this. This is something that I've had a lot of discussions about with my wife, as she is a Marxist-Leninist.
Nice.
Yes, like me. And and she's in the United States, and she's been very much aware of like how the the system is stacked against her in this way. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm really looking forward to getting her out of that country. But as a cis person, like, no one needs to write, especially in law, like, you can't fire somebody for being cis. So, like, you're already, like, a protected class, you know?
Yeah.
And so you can say things to stick up for us. You can do things to defend us and support us, and probably won't lose your job for it. But we can lose our jobs just for existing. I think that's important to bear in mind.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. Because, wow.
So, it looks like we've reached the end of our time here.
Yeah.
Thanks again for tuning in to the Trans Icelandic Broad Cast. I hope that you found this entertaining and most of all informative, and do take it to heart. I know that there's a lot of very well-meaning folks out there who want to support us, and so I really hope that this provided some guidelines for you to be able to do so effectively.
Yeah. Like and subscribe.
Yes. Links in the description.
Yeah.
And I'm Andie Fontaine, and
I'm Sæborg Ninja. Donate and be better.
Thanks for tuning in.